Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina. Fan Fave with Katrina. It's time to talk pop culture.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Katrina, and this is Fan Fave, the ultimate pop culture podcast for fans of all forms of entertainment. If you love music, television, film, theater, or anything in between, you're in the right place. Hello. Welcome back. I am back. I was gone on a little bit of a break. I talked about the possibility of a break on our last episode, actually. But for those that may have missed it, I'm getting my master's degree at Georgetown University right now, and I just wrapped my first year in the program, so I was dealing with finals, but I survived. I made it through. I passed all 3 of my classes. But with a full-time job, I got a little bit overwhelmed and just needed to take a little bit of a break from the podcast so I could keep up with the rest of my little life stuff going on. But I am so back. Actually fresh off of vacation, because as soon as my finals were over, I went to Disney World for a little vacation with my mom Mother's Day weekend, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty chill episode to just kind of catch up on things, and as the title of this episode kind of suggests, Pop Culture Finals, this episode is essentially a debrief on the pop culture things that happened while I was in finals and the thoughts and experiences that I have had while being too busy to hop on this podcast and talk about them. So let's get into it. So first up, let's talk about Broadway stuff. Nominations for the Tony Awards came out since we last spoke, and I have a lot of thoughts about them for a girl who has not seen half of these shows yet. I'm only going to talk about the major categories because speaking on shows based on what I've heard other people say on them isn't really fair. So let's just talk about it. For Best Play, we have Jaja's African Hair Braiding, Mary Jane, Mother Play, Prayer for the French Republic, and Stereophonic. And I have to say I'm most interested in seeing Stereophonic. I'm not even, I knew about Jaja's African Hair Braiding. I wanted to see that, but it closed. But Stereophonic is still running, and that's like the other one that I know anything about what the plot is, and it seems really interesting, and it's the one that I've heard the most raves on, so I'm not really surprised about how many nominations it got. I think it got a pretty good amount, even for like best score, I think, which it's like super rare, or even, I don't know, it may not even have happened before where a play has won best score. So I think that would be pretty cool, and I kind of want to see it. Now, for best musicals, I was kind of surprised when this list came out and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I realized, like, there's so many musicals out this season, right? So it was already competitive. And then when I was looking at it, I was like, I feel like there's some major snubs in here. And then I remembered that the revivals category exists. So it's kind of like split between there. But still, best musicals, let's talk about the nominees first. Hell's Kitchen, Illinois, The Outsiders, Suffs, and Water for Elephants. You guys, some of these I predicted. I could have thought they were going to get in, especially like The Outsiders. But then others were kind of surprises for me, like Water for Elephants. I'm really surprised that got a nomination and not The Notebook, because it seems like opinion-wise, The Notebook has gotten a lot of raves. And I just have to say, like, in general, I mean, with the critics, The Notebook, I guess, it had mixed reviews, and I think that Water for Elephants, on average, had more positive reviews with the critics. But just with, like, the fans and, like, what people are saying, like, online, it just seemed like The Notebook had such a strong backing, and I know, like, it's doing well as well. So it's just kind of surprising to see that it didn't get Best Musical. And then I also do think that it got just snubbed overall. I don't think it got much of any nominations. I was really surprised because, like, I know Joy Woods is in the show, and I've seen her in other shows. So, like, I can kind of use my judgment with some of these, like, nominations. And I know she's extremely talented, and a lot of people were shocked that she didn't get nominated for her role in The Notebook. I just feel like I was expecting a lot more for The Notebook. I mean, before a lot of these shows came out, people are always talking online, and a lot of people were even saying, like, The Notebook is going to win Best Musical, and to see how it didn't even get nominated after that was, like, the initial predictions of a lot of people, it was just, like, pretty surprising. I have to say, out of this bunch of the 5 Best Musical nominees, I think I'm most excited to see The Outsiders. I think that, well, I'm actually going to talk about it in a few minutes. I'm going to see another show soon. But after that, I think The Outsiders will be the next show that I check out. And then I know my mom wants to check out Hell's Kitchen, and I think that one is pretty good too. I've heard some pretty great stuff about that, so I want to see that one too. Now, for Best Revival of a Play, there's 3 nominations here for Appropriate, An Enemy of the People, and Pearly Victorious. Those, I've heard great things about all 3 of those. That's going to be a really hard category to see who takes it. Like, those are all really strong like shows from what I've heard. And then for best revival of a musical, we have Cabaret, Gutenberg, Merrily We Roll Along, and The Who's Tommy. So that's a pretty good category. I feel like those are all like pretty decent shows from what I've heard. I have to say that I'm very surprised that The Wiz got snubbed, and I have to say like over The Who's Tommy, because I haven't seen The Who's Tommy, but from what I've heard, like it's not even really doing that well. And I know it's not about like sales and stuff, but it seems like I've seen more people go see The Wiz and talk great about The Wiz than I have The Who's Tommy. Like if I could switch one out, I'd probably switch that one out for The Wiz. But Cabaret, obviously, that's one that was really good on the West End, but it actually came over here in America, and the critics did not talk about it as well as they did with the West End. The reviews were actually mixed, and I remember a lot of people were very surprised that the reviews were mixed for Cabaret because it had like such raving reviews. Everybody thought it was going to be like a massive sweep, but it got the nomination for Best Revival. Gutenberg, that recently closed with Josh Gad and Andrew Rannells. I didn't get a chance to see that one, but from what I've heard, it was pretty fun, a really exciting show. And then we have Merrily We Roll Along, which, as we know, it has Lindsay Mendez, Daniel Radcliffe, and Jonathan Groff. And as I just said, I'm about to see a show, and it's actually this one. I'll be seeing this show this weekend, and I'm super excited because it's been on my list to see for so long, so I'll finally be able to share my opinions on that. And I mean, that one, I think, based off of everything we've heard for the past year about this show, that was like a very obvious contender for Best Revival, and I could see it even winning just because everybody has just great things to say about this show. So I'm really excited to check it out. But going back to The Wiz, like I'm just very surprised that The Wiz didn't get like anything at all. I mean, I think it was a pretty minimalistic show. I know that's what like the big complaint is about The Wiz. I think like it didn't have like these grand like sets or these grand costumes. A lot of people are saying, well, it started on a tour and then it feels like the tour just like unloaded onto Broadway. I feel like all of that criticism is just a little bit much because for one, I saw The Wiz. I saw it on the tour in DC on the first stop and I was still blown away. I thought it was absolutely incredible. And it's like, it's the talent that's on the stage. And what it kind of reminds me of, and I mean, I can't really compare these two productions because I've never seen like any other production of The Wiz, so I don't know how it's like supposed to be in terms of spectacle, but it kind of reminded me of Into the Woods, and I feel like the public's opinion on that was like completely different, where there was absolutely nothing going on with that revival in, what was that, 2021 or 2022, the last revival on Broadway that they did. It was like nothing. There were just like trees on the stage and the costumes were super simple, like very minimalistic, and that's what a lot of people were talking about. Is like, well, it's so great because it just lets you see like the talent on the stage and like how talented the big cast is of all these big Broadway names and stars, and like just letting the cast shine with their talent. And I feel like that's what The Wiz did. And now people are like saying it's not enough like sets and it's not enough designs and all of this is wrong, but like the cast is incredible, and it's like I feel like they should have gotten at least something, you know what I mean? Like even if it was for like the actresses and the actors, or even like I love the choreography. Like I was really surprised that they didn't get anything, and especially with like most of the negative reviews being for something that I've seen like other shows get nominations despite doing basically the exact same thing was a little bit baffling to me. But I don't know, I recommend The Wiz. That's one of the few Tony nominations from this round that I have been able to check out so far, and I really enjoyed it. And so even though it got snubbed for the Tonys, like don't be shy to ease on down the road or whatever. It's still a good show. I think that's all I'll say about the Tony nominations, though. I just like The Notebook and The Wiz. Those were probably the big snubs, I say, for me. And I think a lot of people agree. A lot of people are going very hard for The Great Gatsby, I've seen. But I thought the reviews on that were pretty mixed, according to like the critics and stuff. Not even the critics and the fans. So like the fans are like split. And it's like Broadway fans don't really like it, but then they have their own like designated fan base that I think are just like Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada fans, and then other people that like The Great Gatsby. I've actually, like, for you guys that have been following along, because I've talked about it a couple times, there's 2 productions of The Great Gatsby vying for Broadway. One is already on Broadway, one is still being developed in Boston and is potentially coming down to Broadway. And I saw somebody recently describe it as the one on Broadway is what you would expect a production about The Great Gatsby to be, whereas the one in Boston is a lot more imaginative and it just takes the text to a whole another level. And so I think part of the reason why, like, a lot of the general Broadway fans haven't really been so like positive about that show is because they feel like it could be like more creative or something. From what I've seen about The Great Gatsby, I really thought that I wasn't going to be interested in it because of what everybody was saying about it online. But the clips that I've seen, like the one song, it's like all over TikTok right now. It's like The Party Never Stops. That one, it looks so good. Like I think The Great Gatsby might be good. And I saw like when the Tony nominations came out and everybody was like that fan base of people that like stan the show already were like, The Great Gatsby was snubbed, and everybody was like, no, it wasn't. Like it might have been. Like I kind of want to see that one because there's so many different opinions online, and I'm like reading some and saying, okay, well, I won't go see that if everybody's saying it's not good, or I will go see that because everybody is saying it's good. But there's some shows that are split where I'm like, maybe I do just have to see for myself, you know? So I'm kind of interested in The Great Gatsby. I'll just throw that one in as a potential snub, depending on how you look at it or depending on what's your opinion on it. But let me know, you guys, who you want to see win at the Tonys, who you think should have been nominated. I'm curious because I want to see more shows and I just want to hear more opinions about the shows. So let me know. Now we're going to jump into the movie industry because since we last spoke, well, I highlighted two here. I highlighted two new movie announcements that I'm like super pumped about. So the first one, it's starring Keke Palmer and SZA. Keke Palmer and SZA are going to be in a movie together, you guys. It's an untitled buddy comedy that they're keeping the plot under wraps for right now. It just got announced. So, I mean, already that just sounds amazing, right? And Issa Rae is producing. So we just know like that's going to be such a great movie, right? Like Keke Palmer, SZA, produced by Issa Rae. It's a buddy comedy. Like sign me up. Like I'm ready to see it already. Like I don't even care. Like it's going to be good, right? The other movie announcement that I kind of wanted to talk about today is one that I actually had multiple friends text me about and reach out to me before I even saw it or even said anything, because everyone knows that this movie caters directly to my brand, and they started spamming me like, have you heard about this? Are you behind this in some sort of way? Okay, guys. Nick Jonas and Paul Rudd are starring in Power Ballad, a musical comedy that is coming out. They're currently filming it. It's apparently an uplifting, music-driven story about a wedding singer, a rock star, and the song that comes between them. As you all know, I'm a very big fan of the Jonas Brothers, like for life, since I was literally like 3 or 4 years old, like a literal child. And then I'm also a very big Paul Rudd fan since like my teenage years. So like he's literally my favorite actor, and they're literally one of my favorite music groups. So this combination is like crazy, and it's a comedy and it's a musical movie. I mean, it's the perfect matchup ever. I cannot wait to see this movie. It will immediately be my favorite movie. Like I don't even care if it's stupid. It's going to be my favorite movie, and it's going to be amazing. Now, moving on to television, the main television thing I want to talk about is the season 49 finale of Saturday Night Live. It was hosted by Jake Gyllenhaal with musical guest Sabrina Carpenter, and I thought it was a pretty alright episode. I mean, I was sleepy when I watched this. I probably should rewatch it before I talk about it because I was in New York and I was like riding home like at 1 or 2 a.m. on the road, half awake. But, you know, I watched it. I tuned in. I thought the monologue was very fun. It was a musical monologue. It wasn't really focused about Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, he joked a little bit about how he's hosting the season 49 finale, which is right before, obviously, like the major season 50th year anniversary of SNL. And it's like, he wants to be included in that. I thought that was kind of a funny joke. And then it went into like this musical performance of them doing like The End of the Road, like that song, if you know it. I thought it was all really great. I thought that was very funny. The sketches itself, I thought they were okay. I remember there was like a bicycle one. That one was kind of silly. That was like when I fell asleep. But I woke back up for Sabrina Carpenter. I know I was back up by then. And Sabrina Carpenter was so good. Like, I was very excited to see her perform because she's just like, she's blown up over the years. I have to say, I've been following her from the beginning, since like the Girl Meets World days or whatever. I've seen her in concert. Like the first time I saw her in concert was probably like 7 years ago. Like I've been following her for a long time, and she's just now blowing up, and it's amazing to see. And I remember when she was performing, she did Espresso and then she did Feather, and I was like, she better do the nonsense outro. I was like waiting for it because like an SNL version of that was going to be so great, and then she did it and I was like, okay. Like, I love the nonsense outros. I love watching all of like the mashup videos of them, and so then seeing her do it on SNL, like, that was so funny. And then also another highlight I think of this episode was the joke swap, which I won't even say that's a highlight, to be honest. I mean, here's what I'll say. I'll say that Colin Jost and Michael Che doing the joke swaps, that's typically like my favorite thing that they do, but the last like 3 or 4 of them have just not hit. And so I was like excited to see them do the joke swap, but it wasn't really like that funny. I don't know. But I feel like the best joke swap that they did was probably like the 2017, 2018 ones. Like, I'm going all the way back, you know, like I'm very much at like, there's this quote that goes around where it's like, I think Lorne Michaels said it, somebody said it, and they were like, SNL is the funniest whenever you were in high school. And so I'm literally taking you back to high school. Like, joke swaps were the funniest when I was in high school. The ones from like the first few times where they did it, those were the best ones. I wasn't like super impressed with this one, nor was I. There was one from like, I think it might have been like the Christmas episode. There was another one that they recently did, and I was kind of like, it's okay, you know. I think both of those, they like brought out like guests. Like, I think the last time it was like a civil rights person. I didn't even remember who it was this time. It was just like, it was okay. I enjoy the joke swaps, but I don't know, they hit their peak already. Overall, I thought that the episode was just okay. You know, it was good. I feel like season 49 as a whole was pretty good. I mean, I thought that the hosts were decent, the musical guests were decent, but then like different episodes were kind of hit or miss. I have to say like the highlights were probably Ryan Gosling and Timothée Chalamet's episodes for me, but I'm very excited to see what they do with season 50 because obviously that's going to be such a major season. It's going to be like so many special guests probably. They have the big like celebration thing that's happening in February, so it's going to be huge. Like, I'm excited to see it, you know? Also, I feel like I have to say, because it's like a common discussion among like Saturday Night Live fans, was like, who do you think will stay till season 50? And I have to say, I think all of them, and I hope all of them, you know. Like, I don't think that like the Weekend Update is going to change before a major election or before season 50. Like, Colin and Michael are staying. But I also have to say, like, Michael Longfellow was one of my favorite cast members in season 48. And not to go on like a whole little tangent, but I think that's one of the things that I did not like about season 49 of Saturday Night Live is it seemed like after everybody left at the end of season 47 and they brought on these new cast members, in season 48, I felt like it was still a lot of people on the cast, but it was pretty balanced. And you were seeing a lot of the new people. And then it was like they just reverted back to like all of the new cast like not really getting much screen time at all in season 49. And so that was very disappointing because I really enjoyed like Michael Longfellow, for example. I love seeing him on the Weekend Update desk like for characters and stuff, and I feel like he did like at least 5 or 6 in season 48, and he only did like 1 or 2 this season. It was like insane. He was like never to be found. And so I have to say, like, I would like to see more screen time from some of the other cast members in season 50. I'm probably missing like a million little things though, you guys, with this episode because I didn't take the best notes on all the pop culture news. Like, it's been a whole month basically since I last did an episode, but I'm gonna assume that I've kind of covered the major things like Tony nominations, SNL finale, music releases actually. Who do we get? Billie Eilish, Zayn, Dua Lipa. She released one of my favorite albums of the year. I may do another podcast episode focused specifically on the pop girl releases of the year because it feels like all of the major pop girls released music this year already, and it's so crazy. Like, it's literally like 6 months into the year, and what we have like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, Dua Lipa. Well, we have like Camila Cabello is coming. I think Normani is coming out with something. Like, it's like constant back to back, and it's kind of crazy. Like, who else is out there? Are we gonna get a Rihanna album or something? Like, it's getting crazy out there, and I love it, you know. Like, I love having all of this new music to listen to, but the fact that they all the major pop artists, I guess we have Lady Gaga and Katy Perry left. Katy Perry, she actually is teasing new music, so it's like all in like 6 months. It's crazy. But I have to say that Dua Lipa like Radical Optimism. So many people are kind of being nasty about it on Twitter, like it's not good. It is so good. It's probably one of my favorites out of everybody that I just listed. I've probably listened to it the most. Maybe Tortured Poets Department I've listened to closest, but I've listened to Radical Optimism so much. And like, I've been a fan of Dua Lipa since I was in high school, when she only had the debut, before New Rules even blew up. Like, I was telling my friends about her, and I remember like loving the debut album. Future Nostalgia was great, but there was something about the debut album that I just loved. And then obviously like Future Nostalgia is like 4 years old now, and so like in between that and now, I wasn't as big of a fan of her music like as much, just because she wasn't doing as much anymore. And so I was listening to other artists, and I kind of didn't get super hype about this album release. I didn't even really enjoy Houdini, and like, what was the other single? Training Season, I think, was the other one she released early. I didn't even really listen to those as much when they came out, but like now with the album out and just hearing all of it, this, even just like on the first listen that I heard it, I was immediately like, yeah, this is one of my favorite albums. Like, a lot of the time I'll listen to an album and be kind of like, okay, I kind of don't like this song, or like, is it almost over? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like there's any skip tracks on this album. And so I have to talk about it extensively because, you know, a lot of people on Twitter, they're like calling it a flop, or they're saying it's not that good. And I have to disagree. And if you didn't give it a chance, literally listen to it. If you think it sounds exactly like Future Nostalgia, you're wrong. It's a lot different. It feels like you're like laid back, relaxing on a beach with like a cool breeze. Like, it's such a summer album. It's so much fun. Like, just the first track alone, like End of an Era, like Here She Goes Again. I love that. Like, it's so good. And then like, I like Falling Forever. I'm trying to think, like, what other ones are my favorites? Probably Illusion. There's so many good ones on there. Like, it's such a good album. I have it on repeat, and it's insane, like, that no one is talking about it. It's good. Go listen to it, okay? And then I also have to shout out Billie Eilish, because I'll be transparent with you guys. I've never been super big on Billie Eilish. Like, I discovered her in high school, too. I mean, like, when I say high school, this was a long time ago. This was, like, 6 or 7 years ago. So this was very early in her career. And I didn't like all the creepy stuff with that first album. You know, she had the music video with like the spiders and stuff. Like, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, this was before Bad Guy blew up, but I think it was the Bad Guy era, because I think Bad Guy blew up like my freshman year of college. And like, a lot of my friends were into Billie Eilish, and they were telling me to listen to her, and I did not like her aesthetic at all back then. It was very creepy. And I know she changed it a lot, like to like kind of like very chill, soft pop. And then that kind of sound, just, it's never really been my style. Like, I like very loud, upbeat. And she has some of that, but you know, the Billie Eilish songs that I have liked over the years, I do like her very unique sound. It's just not something that I listen to all the time. So I like the basic songs that everybody knows, like Everything I Wanted, you know, like the very chill ones. Like, I like it when I like it, but I don't really listen to her music like in the full albums or like anything like that. Like, I don't know anything past her singles. But my friend Gabby, she went to like the listening party thing that they did in New York. It was like a big thing at Barclays Center. It was free tickets, and they got to go in, and Billie was there and played the album for them. And she's a huge Billie Eilish fan, my friend. And she convinced me to listen to this new album. She said it's her favorite album by Billie. She said it's more upbeat. She said I might like it. And so I gave it a try, you guys. I love it. Like, I don't know, maybe I should go back and listen to her other albums and just give it a chance, because this album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, is so good. It's probably like, if I had to say like my top 3, like it's in my top 3 at least. Like, still very new, and I'm still very new to it. It came out just last week, but there's just like the whole album, it's only 10 songs from start to finish. It's just like an experience. And I feel like for me, it takes me a while to kind of like sit down and digest the music. So when a new album comes out, I might listen to it like once straight through and then take a break and listen to some music that I'm more familiar with. With this album, I listened to it straight through, was like, wow, that's amazing, and immediately was like, let's do it again. And I listened to it full out. a second round. So I really like this album, and if you guys think I should listen to more Billie Eilish music, let me know. I feel like I usually have to just kind of be in the mood for that chill, very soft pop sound, but this album I really liked, so maybe I should just give it a second chance. Maybe my music taste is just evolved since the last time I've tried to listen to her, because yeah, this album is really good. Or maybe it's just like her sound is different in this album. Something about it, I just really love it. So yeah, I guess I'm a new Billie Eilish fan, you can say. The other thing I wrote down on here to talk about is this insane revelation about one of my all-time favorite Disney Channel movies that I found out about since we last spoke, and I have to share. I must share with the pop culture class. And I'm sorry if you knew this already, but I've never seen anyone talk about this. And it's like as big of a revelation as when I found out that Let It Shine is based on Cyrano. But anyways, Teen Beach Movie, the first one at least. I'm not sure if this stays consistent with the sequel. I don't even care about the sequel. Do not talk to me about the sequel. It does not exist to me anyways. But the first Teen Beach Movie, there are multiple cast members who were not singing. And you know what? I know it's not some crazy concept. Zac Efron didn't sing in the first High School Musical movie. They don't always cast singers in Disney Channel movies. But I just didn't know, and it was right in front of my eyes this entire time. So I just thought it was kind of insane because, I mean, I listen to this album all the time. I love the Teen Beach Movie soundtrack in the movie, and it's something about it that's just so nostalgic about it to me from like middle school. And so the other week or so, I was listening to the album, and then I happened to look at the names on the bottom. Like, I don't know how to describe it because I use Tidal, and I know most people don't, but if you have like the track and then right under it is like the artist name, and it's like a scrolling thing because it's so many people in the cast singing on these ensemble tracks. So, you know, it'll say Ross Lynch, it'll say Maya Mitchell, and then it'll scroll through the other names of all the people that are singing. And so it's easy to miss, right? And so I've never noticed it, but I looked at the names on the bottom this time, and my eyes saw the name Spencer Lee, and I was like, hold on, who is this? And then I noticed that Garrett Clayton, who plays Tanner, was the name that was missing on here. So I did some Googling around, and it turns out that this musician named Spencer Lee actually did the singing in the movie for Tanner. So it was not Garrett Clayton singing, it was actually Spencer Lee. And I had no clue, and you know what's honestly sad is I looked him up, and then I found out, the way that I found out about him is the first thing that popped up was this article announcing that he actually just passed away a couple months ago, and he's pretty young. So I was like, that's sad. And I also just had no clue it was someone else singing. Like, I don't know. I wish people got more credit. I don't know what else they could do. I mean, his name is literally right there, but still, like, you never think about stuff like that. I would have never noticed it. So give Spencer Lee your flowers. And also, this revelation does not just stop there. Our Cruisin' for a Bruisin' king, John DeLuca, who plays Butchie in the movie, he's not the one singing either in the first Teen Beach Movie. His parts were actually sung by Jason Evigan because they wanted him to have a singing voice that was closer to that of Elvis. So yeah, the more you know, if you even care. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go learn, because Teen Beach Movie is actually one of the best Disney Channel original movies ever made. Like, I put it up there with Camp Rock and High School Musical. It's very good to me. So yeah, it's not a really big deal, but an interesting, fun little fact, right? Now moving on, let's talk about what I've been up to. I've been up to quite a bit since we've last spoken. The first thing I want to talk about is Walt Disney World. As I mentioned in the intro, I went back to Walt Disney World